You are 15. This is ancient Egypt. Tonight is not about love. It's a state ritual. A queen's wedding night affects borders, money, and peace. The pharaoh wants an heir. The court wants proof. The gods are asked to keep order, what Egyptians call ma'at. The palace has a clear rule everyone understands. Here are 3 signs. First sign, blessing. Second sign, listening. Third sign, decision. Remember this. The third sign decides. The corridors are lit with torches. You smell kifi incense. Servants tighten your linen belt and smooth oil through your hair. A small bes amulet and a tiny taret figure rest against your skin. They look like jewelry, but they're there for protection and for expectation. Scribes sit in side rooms and write lists of gifts. Priests sing a short hymn to Hathor, the goddess of joy. Cups move. People laugh. Everyone pretends this is normal. First sign, blessing. In a small chapel, the priest makes a quick prayer for harmony and children. It sounds kind, but it's also a contract. The crown protects, the bride continues the line. You bow. The formal part is done. Now, the part people actually care about begins. Egypt is not Europe. No officials stand at the bed. The kingdom prefers symbols, not public checks. But symbols still have teeth. There are attendants at the door. No one calls them witnesses, but they listen. Older women, a nurse, a midwife, a trusted lady, carry bowls and clean cloths and say simple, practical things about rest and courage. A clean linen sheet lies ready. In this palace, no one will wave it from a balcony in the morning. Still, any signs, or the lack of them, will move through the corridors very fast. Palaces don't need town criers. They have servants. Second sign, listening. As the night goes on, the hall grows quiet. People slow their steps. They listen for a cry, a laugh, a prayer, or nothing. Silence counts here. Not in a holy book, but in gossip that turns into policy. A kingdom can forgive many things. It does not forgive uncertainty about an heir. You think about when you stopped being only a person and became part of a machine. They measured your height with a cord. They tracked your moon cycles. Someone told you to sleep with a ring under your pillow for protection. It really meant for performance. When you stand still, they call you a statue. When you walk, they call you a procession. Either way, you are observed. He comes in with ceremony. The pharaoh is a man, but also an office. A staff with a jackal head rests by the bed. Anubis, a reminder that bodies carry more than private life. He learned since boyhood that a straight line of suns keeps the map steady. You learn since girlhood that pain can be duty. No one taught either of you what to do with fear. The door closes. The air changes. People outside think privacy starts now. It doesn't. Egypt thinks through wood and gold. It thinks through the hands that carry bowls, the feet that pause in the corridor, the pen of a scribe waiting over a blank space where a result should be. Remember the third sign. The third sign decides. If there is a clear mark, the morning is simple. If there is a believable story, the morning is useful. If there is nothing, the morning becomes a process. The court will search for another measure, another clock, another proof. And when proof doesn't come, the court will try to make one. This room looks private, but it isn't. It's where a girl is turned into an institution. You are surrounded by people and rules, yet you're the only person who must live with what the room decides. The lamps are steady. The linen is ready. The kingdom is waiting. The third sign hasn't happened yet, but everyone already acts as if they know what it will say. Second sign, listening is already working. The corridor outside your door slows down. Shoes soften. Voices drop. People don't stand with ears to the wood. They pass, pause, and pass again. A servant sets down a bowl a little too carefully. Another coughs to signal that nothing is happening yet. No one writes anything, but the palace is taking notes. Inside, the room is simple on purpose. A lamp, water, clean linen. The older women keep the pace steady. Breathe, drink, rest your hands, don't rush. They talk about small things, hairpins the draft under the door because small talk keeps panic from taking over. Their real job is not comfort. It's observation. They will remember if your voice shakes, if your hands are cold, if you ask to stop. Egypt likes symbols more than public checks. Still, the same question circles here as in any court. Is the line secure? Nobody says the word proof, but everyone acts as if proof were a thing you can set on a table. There will be no banner waved at dawn. Yet stories travel faster than banners. By morning, 3 different versions of your night will already be alive. If a clear sign appears, the palace relaxes. The second sign, listening, turns into nodding. People smile. Musicians start again. The day's work continues. You become part of a comfortable story. The gods were kind. The line continues, Ma'at holds. If there is nothing, the palace switches to a different kind of measure. First, the calendar. A woman's cycle is now public interest. The chief lady-in-waiting begins a neat list: days, notes, remedies. The physician recommends food and rest. The priest suggests an offering at a quiet shrine. No one calls it pressure. It feels like a schedule. Second, the body language test. You don't know it's a test, but it is. Do you eat? Do you laugh at breakfast? Do you avoid certain hallways? The steward will read these details as if they were law. In a court, mood is data. Third, the circle test. The pharaoh has other women, concubines, or future wives the court can elevate if needed. This is not a secret. The palace watches how you handle it. Do you keep the main seat at festivals? Do you walk the gardens? As usual? A queen who holds her place calmly buys herself time. Time is often all that's needed. There are also remedies that everyone pretends are just tradition. Honey and dates to warm the body. Oils for sleep. Votive figures left at a small shrine to Hathor. A priest's amulet to open the way. Whether you believe in them or not doesn't matter. What matters is that the palace sees you doing them. Action reduces rumor. None of this is written anywhere, but everyone knows the steps. The chamberlain will happen to meet the physician. The physician will happen to mention that sleep is improving. The high steward will happen to tell the chief scribe that the queen's appetite returned. These accidents are the palace's way to soften a bad night into a better path. And yet the second sign, listening, can also turn cruel. If a careless joke escapes a mouth in the hall, it will grow teeth. If a rival wants your place, she will feed silence with stories. A queen's best defense is clarity. Appear in public at the right time, greet the right elders, present small acts of piety that even your enemies must respect. You are building a shield out of habits. Days pass. The calendar fills. People start counting moons instead of minutes. The court can tolerate one quiet night. It cannot tolerate a quiet season. After 2 moons, the steward speaks of patience. After 3, he says plans. After 4, the word solution arrives. A solution can mean many things. More offerings, more medicine, a formal suggestion to share the burden with another wife, a new treaty that trades a princess for a province. Sometimes the solution is simply to wait, because waiting saves face, and face is a currency. You are learning the machine. When you smile in the courtyard, you feed it. When you skip a meal, you feed it. When you pray at dawn, you feed it. The machine wants one outcome and will try every soft path before it reaches for a hard one. Meanwhile, you and the pharaoh are 2 people in a room trying to act like a nation. He was taught to hold still under pressure. You were taught to endure. Neither lesson explains what to do when the second sign produces no answer. On the 7th morning, the palace returns to form. The steward runs a quiet audit. Who stood at the door and when? Which attendants entered with water? Which elder stayed until the lamp went low? No one says investigation. It feels like tidying up. You're taken to a bath. The water is warm. The women speak in plain words. Eat this, rest then, walk in shade. A ring returns to your hand. You are told to keep it under the pillow. For protection, they say, you nod. You are thinking about proof, not protection. At noon, the court gathers for a small feast. Music returns, but carefully. Your seat is still the first seat. This is a message. The queen remains the queen. Another message sits under it. The court expects progress. The day ends with a simple proverb whispered by the nurse as she sets down your cup. 2 signs are noise. The 3rd sign is truth. You know what comes next. The palace is done listening. It is ready to decide. 3rd sign, decision. The court stops pretending to wait. It picks a story and moves as if it were fact. If there was a clear sign in the night, everything is simple. A short message runs through the palace. Musicians return. Lineage records are updated. A small lamp is lit at Hathor's shrine. You walk the garden with the Pharaoh where people can see you side by side. For a while your place is secure. Courtiers say Ma'at holds, and the talk turns back to borders, grain, and taxes. If there was nothing, the palace changes shape. A closed meeting forms behind a quiet door. The high steward, the chief scribe, the physician, and 2 senior women from the inner rooms. The Pharaoh joins when needed. No one says problem. They say plan. The plan sounds gentle. More rest, fewer ceremonies, a fixed routine, better food, small offerings at a side chapel. But a routine is also a leash. Control arrives disguised as care. Outwardly, you remain the great royal wife. Your seat stays first at festivals. Your name stays on dedications. Your duties continue. The palace avoids sudden moves because speed looks like weakness. Instead, it widens the stage. You open a small temple school for girls, visit workshops, fund repairs in the city. The message is steady and public. The queen is working. Gossip slows when people see work. At the same time, another path opens quietly. A favored woman is moved closer. Better rooms, better cloth, better lessons. No proclamation calls her a rival. In practice, she is a backup. The law allows it, and the calendar now has 2 lines, yours and hers. Everyone calls this normal, but normal is also pressure. Doctors speak simply about sleep, herbs, and walks in shade. Priests add small rites that are respectful and harmless. A lamp at night, a votive figure at a side altar, a short prayer at dawn. Whether you believe is not the point. The point is to show the palace that every reasonable step is taken. Action is evidence when evidence is missing. Each new moon, the steward reads the notes with calm words: appetite, rest, visits, mood, and he uses 3 more calm words to summarize them: progress, stability, confidence. Those words buy you time. Time is often what turns a narrow path into a passable road. The Pharaoh lives in 2 directions at once. As a man, he may feel awkward or sorry or impatient. As a ruler, he must protect the line. Some nights, he sits with you and talks about canals and border towns. Other nights, he follows the second path the court prepared for him. The palace reads both choices and converts them into policy. A public walk with you becomes unity in the scribe's tablets. A visit to the inner apartments becomes prudence. The same act wears different names depending on who needs to hear it. Your tools are not dramatic, and they are not secret. You show up where a queen should be. Audiences with elders, gifts to temples, fair attention to petitioners. You keep your place at major rites and do not vanish. Absence becomes a headline. You choose allies who actually move the day. The chief lady-in-waiting who sees everything first, the steward who chooses what reaches the Pharaoh, the old nurse whom everyone trusts. You make small things predictable: meals, walks, prayers. Predictable habits calm a nervous building. Sometimes good news arrives after a few months, and the machine that pressed you becomes the same machine that lifts you. Ceremonies return, songs return, faces soften. People say it was always going to happen. You know it was not. Sometimes the court decides to formalize the second track. A secondary wife receives a title and a staff. The announcement praises you and honors her in the same sentence. Your duties remain, but your rooms get quieter. Your days change shape. City matters in the morning. Inner rooms after noon, the chapel at dusk. You keep your network strong. In Egypt, power is not only birth, it is also presence and memory. A respected queen can still hold factions steady, guide a policy meeting with one question, and raise the standing of those who stand with her. There is a hard option the palace hates to name: removal. It is rare and expensive. A queen tied to alliances, dowries, and public works is not set aside lightly. More often, the palace chooses distance instead. A villa by the river appears. A new role at a temple appears. Public days are fewer. You remain queen on stone, but you stand in fewer rooms where choices are made. Even here, there is room to act. You can shape the official story one scene at a time. When you leave a council and walk with the Pharaoh in the garden, the tablets record unity. When you visit the women's court with cloth and grain, they record care. When you invite the favored woman to sit at a festival and the day passes without tension, they record order. Records last longer than moods. You can also draw lines. You can refuse cruelty in your rooms and stop blame from rolling downhill onto servants. You can halt a rumor with a single steady sentence to the right elder, and that sentence will travel through 3 rooms before sunset without your name attached. In a palace, a calm line repeated by someone respected can be stronger than any shout. At the end of the decision week, the building exhales. The steward closes his tablet. The priest clears the altar. The physician says continue. It feels like an ending, but it isn't. The court will return to listening next moon. The loop never stops. Decision is not a finish. It is the setting in which you must now live. What matters next is survival inside that setting. How queens bend the loop without breaking it. How law and custom can be used to make space, and how small, steady wins become real ground. That is the work ahead. The loop doesn't end. The palace listens, decides, and then listens again. To live inside that rhythm, you make space where you can, and you make it visible so the building learns to leave it to you. You start with usefulness. When a flood map comes in from the south, you ask for the copy and mark safe grain depots with a reed pen. When a workshop sends poor cloth to the women's court, you send it back once, with a short note that names the foreman and the date. The next bolts arrive stronger. No speech, no drama, just a steady line of cause and effect that people can point to. A queen who fixes small things is harder to move out of big rooms. Law gives you levers. You don't argue doctrine, you ask for records. Contracts, dates, who signed, which seal. The chief scribe respects clean paperwork more than tears. When he sees your hand in clear entries, repairs funded, rations allotted, a widow's petition answered in 2 days, he begins to treat your requests as order, not noise. Order is the language he trusts. Custom gives you cover. You take the title that opens doors, great royal wife in public, and when it suits the priests, God's wife in the temple. At festivals, you lift the sistrum and keep the beat simple. The city sees you steady the procession and reads it as balance. You don't overreach. You keep the moves repeatable so that even your rivals can't explain why they should be stopped. A habit that helps the city becomes law by another name. You build a memory around you. Names of nurses, midwives, scribes' sons, stable boys who carry messages faster than stewards do. You learn who gets sick every winter, who has a brother in the garrison, who reads quickly. You praise in front of witnesses and scold in private. People remember the ratio. In a place where gossip is policy, memory is armor. The favored woman walks nearer now. Some days she passes like a shadow. Some days she stands in the light because the court put her there. You do not let the room choose your posture. You greet her with the same set of words each time. You place her 2 steps to your right at the small rites and 1 step behind at the large ones. That spacing speaks its own language. It says, there is room for you, and they're the line. Lines calm buildings. If a child comes from that track before one comes from yours, the air changes. You feel it. Everyone does. You do not pretend otherwise. You send gifts to the wet nurse, choose a tutor who is strict but kind, and visit the nursery at hours when people will see your footprints in the dust. You do not let the story become two houses. You make it one roof with many rooms, and you keep the keys to the hallway that connects them. A queen who can love a child that is not hers is telling the city the oldest truth it knows. The line is more than one cradle. Sometimes good news arrives to you later. Then the same people who measured your sleep suddenly remember your patience. Do not gloat. Let them write the words they need: favor, blessing, balance, and keep your steps the same length as yesterday. The map of influence changes slowly, then all at once. Steady feet matter when the floor tilts. You protect your private ground. A room for quiet. 2 attendants who speak plainly. A physician who answers to you first. Small foods that help you rest. Walks in shade. No one will guard these things unless you do. When you keep them, your voice stays level in public, and level voices last longer than sharp ones. You learn to time a sentence. After a council goes in circles, you wait for the second silence, not the first. In the second silence, men are tired of their own echoes. You say one clear thing that turns the circle into a path, a place, a number, a date. Send 3 barges from Perbas tomorrow at dawn. Not we should consider. Not perhaps. A verb and a clock. The steward writes. The room exhales. Later, people remember who gave the day a shape. You use shrines the way farmers use canals. A lamp at dusk. A small figurine left with your name scratched neat underneath. A quiet visit to a healing chapel when you are seen to be unwell. Faith is part of it, but not all. Temples are also networks. Priests speak to merchants who speak to boatmen who speak to guards. A calm report of your health travels as fast as rumor, and often farther. The Pharaoh remains 2 people in one skin. On mornings when he's only a ruler, you speak like a ledger: grain, taxes, border posts. On evenings when he arrives as a man, you let the ledgers sleep. You ask about the dreams that woke him, and you do not repeat the answers. Trust grows in the spaces that are not written down. There are days when you fail. A petition you meant to sign slips into a stack. A joke lands wrong. A festival seat becomes a small fight because someone moved a chair. On those days you apologize once, fix what can be fixed the same hour, and do not rehearse the scene with 10 people. The palace forgets clean mistakes faster than messy excuses. You keep a ledger of favors in your head and balance it. If a governor's wife brings you a problem you cannot solve, you still hear it to the end and send her out with cloth for winter. If the steward shields you in a meeting, you let him win a smaller argument the next day. You do not leave gifts unpaid. Unpaid gifts turn into knives. When you speak to the city, you keep the sentences short. Bread to the poor on festival days. Timber sent to mend a collapsed roof. Grain released early in a lean month. The acts are simple and visible. People repeat them with your name attached, and repetition is a kind of wall. At night, when a loop feels tight and air feels thin, you hold on to 2 rules. First, do not fight the whole building. Choose a door. Open that door every day until the hinge knows your hand. Second, do not spend all your strength on being right. Spend it on being clear. Right is for tablets. Clear is for rooms with people in them. Years pass in this work. Some change you can see. The way stewards wait for your nod before ending a meeting. The way scribes straighten a page when you enter. The way the favored woman's eyes soften when the child laughs in your arms. Some change you only feel. The fear that no one taught you to name becomes something you can carry without spilling it on the floor. One morning the river is high and the city smells clean. You walk the garden with the Pharaoh in ordinary light. No drums, no banners, no tests. The door that once took your breath now opens and closes like any door. You know the loop will still turn, but you also know you have built handholds into it, places to stand when it spins. History will try to make this simple later. It will draw a line from wedding to heir and skip the years in between. You will not argue with history. You will leave signs it cannot ignore. Clear entries and ledgers, clean repairs in stone. A nursery where children from different rooms play under the same roof. A city that breathes a little easier because a woman in a white dress kept her steps even. That is how a queen survives the loop. Not with one grand gesture, but with 10,000 small ones the palace learns to depend on. And then, when the day finally comes that the loop breaks, through joy or grief or change, you are ready to stand on ground you made yourself. Morning always arrives. Doors open, light comes in, and the palace returns to work. People pretend the night was private. It wasn't. It shaped the day you now have to live. Sometimes the loop breaks with joy. A quiet month turns into a quickened pulse, then a midwife's calm nod, then a child who pulls the air into new lungs. The same hands that once counted silence now count gifts at the gate. Your rooms fill, your name hardens in stone, and the city relaxes. You notice the change in small ways. Fewer careful smiles, more honest ones. Less advice, more congratulations. The council still argues about canals and borders, but it argues in front of you, not around you. You hold the line, and for a while, the line holds you. Sometimes the loop breaks another way. No child comes. The second track becomes the main road. A younger wife carries the air, and the court rewrites its seating chart. Even then, the story is not over. Egypt runs on more than births. It runs on grain, records, repairs, and peace. You move your weight to those things. You fund flood walls before the season, set fair measures in the markets, and keep petitions answered. You visit the nursery and make sure the child is taught to read early and to listen early. You stand where the city can see you stand. Power thins, then thickens in a different place. It is not the life you were promised, but it is still a life that shapes other lives. Years smooth the sharp edges. The favored woman becomes a partner in calm, or at least not an enemy. The Pharaoh learns that your steady hand ends meetings faster than a speech. Priests learn your pace. Scribes learn your handwriting. When foreigners arrive, they look for the queen who knows which door leads to a decision. You nod once, and the steward understands what to do. The building remembers. You also keep something for yourself. A room where no one enters without being called. Two people who speak to you plainly. A small table with letters you never sent and prayers you never showed. On hard nights you sit there and write one clear sentence about the day. What went right? What went wrong? What to do next? The habit steadies your head when rooms tilt. One day the loop ends because all loops end. A funeral barge moves, or a new king takes the double crown, or you leave the palace for a villa where the river is loud and the air is kind. The city watches to see what you do with the last shape of your power. You choose simple things that last. A school that keeps teaching after you're gone, a clinic with clean tools, a temple kitchen that feeds anyone who lines up. These are not grand monuments, but they survive floods and rumors. People say your name when they use them. That is a kind of crown. History will shorten your life into a few lines. It will list a marriage, a treaty, a child, a year. It will not write how you timed a sentence, so a meeting could end without a fight. It will not write the day you sent timber to fix a roof, or the evening you held a crying girl in the women's court until her breath slowed. Stone prefers big events. Paper prefers neat columns. The small work that kept people standing will live in other places, in habits, in fair prices, in a quiet street that never learned to fear soldiers. If someone asks what a queen's wedding night meant in ancient Egypt, the simple answer is, it was a test. But the honest answer is, it was the first chapter of a hard book. The first page is loud, blessing, listening decision. The rest are quieter, calendars, ledgers, faces, patience. A country does not run on one night. It runs on the many mornings after, on how you carry power when everyone is watching and when no one is. You were 15 when the palace tried to turn you into a symbol. You learned to be a person inside the symbol. You learned which customs help and which ones only look like help. You learned to use law without becoming cruel and to use mercy without becoming weak. And you left marks the palace could not erase. Clear entries, repaired stones, a child who can read, a room where people breathe easier because you kept the air calm. The door that closed on your first night was never only a door. It was a rule. Years later you open it and walk through on your own terms. The city keeps moving. The river keeps moving. The records keep your name in tight script. And the people who lived under your roof remember something simpler than titles. That while others argued about power, you made sure life could go on.